Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
And speaking of shutdowns, what do you think about the government being shut down? So we had, back on October 1st, the end of the fiscal year was over and the government shuts down and there's, partisan gridlock and all this polarization that's happening. And even as of today, there's no end in sight, man. So I wanted to get your thoughts about how are you feeling about the government shutdown? What's your thoughts? If you have some information to add in terms of helping our audience really understand what a shutdown is, let's go ahead and get into that as well.
I seriously just think human beings like drama. Like, I really just think it's just, how many times have you heard it? How many times have you heard it? I don't know. It's just, to me, I'm just like, nothing changes ever. Nothing ever changes. And I feel like almost like we've heard this like government shutdown thing so many times. I don't know. How many times have you heard Len? I don't ever remember hearing government shutdown until maybe like the mid 90s. I don't remember the first time.
I got a statistic talk about prepreparation.
I love it. What is the statistic on it? Because normally I want to pull the stat and I got you. You got me on it today.
I got you.
I don't even know the first time. What is it?
Since 1976, 21 shutdowns have happened, and the longest shutdown, and I bet you remember this because we were interacting with each other a lot during this time, was 35 days between December 2018 and January 2019. 35 days the government was shut down. So
you want to know what's crazy? You said you asked for a tip to listeners or anyone watching, and we were interacting a lot. Well, you said, what was it again?
December of 2018 to January 2019, the government shut down.
Okay. I don't even remember that. I don't even know that. I don't even know.
Yeah, I remember that.
I don't even know. I didn't even know. And if I did know, it was probably just in and out. I don't. And here's my
Remember point. When we used to do our introductions and we talk about, hey, the government is shut down right now. And I remember that because that was a part of our conversation a lot.
We're laughing about this right now. We're laughing about it. We should be laughing about it because it's absolutely not funny. It's absolutely not funny because the government is a business. And you think about if any business shut down for 30 days or shut down, it's still shut down right now. How long has it been shut down for? I don't even know, like a week now or a few days now?
Today's the 6th. It's shut down on the 1st. So today is day 6.
Okay, so the 6th. So day 6. Okay, so 6 days. That's freaking embarrassing. It's embarrassing. This is just absolutely embarrassing. Tip to the listeners first before I go on a rant, because I could do that. Len smiles, right? I didn't even know what happened, and here's the tip. If I was you and I'm doing the same thing right now, it's not stopping me from doing anything. Look, the government shutting down. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, you're not a business owner. You're just a regular. I don't want to say you're just a regular. You're not an entrepreneur type. You don't want to be an entrepreneur. You've chosen not to do that, or you didn't make it, or whatever camp you're in, or you've chosen to be in. Respect to everybody. I've been in the W-2 camp too. Just work. In fact, I would work twice as hard, triple as hard, just double down, triple down, quadruple down. And it's funny you brought up 2018 to 2019. That was a time period where I literally was I could say I was 4x4ing it at that point, and not like off-roading, but I was like, we're double downing. I was double downing on my double down.
1099.
I was double down. I was double downing on my double downing, right? Like if I was 2-timing, I was 4-timing. Like that's during that time period. Mm-hmm. And a testament to that is that I think that was a year that. I can't remember, but it was 2019 was a massive banner type of year in business, right? Those types of years. In 2019, right before COVID, that year was an absolute beast of a year for a lot of people. It was a beast of a year for us too. And subsequently, that's the key. But the government shutdown, Len, I just think it's embarrassing. And I think at this point, we've heard it so many times that nobody even really cares or listens. No one even cares. No one cares. No one listens. And I think that it's just like this marketing tool now for the opposition to go, ha ha ha. I think seriously, we're so dead set on pinning something on Trump that we want to say, oh, Trump had a government shutdown. But honestly, I think every president has a government shutdown on their record. So it's kind of almost like Oh, you have that medal too? I've got a shutdown medal too. And it's like, it's really not his fault that the government shut down. It's that just goes to show you how insane our government is, just how insane the partisan is, and why two-party system doesn't work, and why we need a third party in there. Because realistically, like, if the government was so concerned about antitrust and anti-monopoly laws, it should really look at itself and go, there's a monopoly happening here. Like, we're not going to let Frontier buy Spirit Airlines, but we're not going to let a two-part, like, it just doesn't make sense to me how and why. But if I'm working, or I'm an investor, or I'm a business owner, I'm focusing on my business. Because here's the thing I can say: the street lights still turned on, the water still came out of the tap, the traffic still ran, the bills still got paid, direct deposits still got made, things still worked. I bet you government employees are still getting work. I bet you any money that they lost of not getting paid, they're going to get paid. So I just think that we really need to take a look at why we're not agreeing to a budget. And it's just a lot of silly things. I think one of the biggest, silliest things, and I don't want to get too political because it just makes me sick, but it's like something where it's like they want to include something in this bill for funding or aid for illegal aliens. And it just, again, we just can't get off having to give away the free money stuff, where honestly, everyone should be ashamed. I don't care what it is. We should all be looking internally right now and going, whether you're Democrat, Republican, and I'm sure you can agree with me on this, Len, we're at a point right now in our country where we really shouldn't be looking about, oh, well, we got to give aid and all that stuff. We should be, because I think that's one of the biggest points to the opposition, the minority party in the Senate right now, or the congressional minority right now, which happens to be Democrats, is funding for illegal aliens or funding for aid of some type. I really think at this point, we really need to look at ourselves internally and go, what is not being met at the needs of on our soil? Because there's a lot of kids that go without, and a lot of places that go without, and there's a lot of poverty, like in a lot of states and a lot of cities that really could look at attention at the federal level. If we've got money to spend that way, if we can argue and keep a government shut down because of that reason, then surely we could look at areas of our country and see where we could spend that money. So that's where I'm at on the government shutdown. I just think it's silly and it's embarrassing.
So I'll give my thoughts as it relates to trying to help the audience really understand what it is and what the implications of it are. Because for entrepreneurs, you're not going to feel it at all because, one, you're in the private sector. Two, essential agencies are still open, like Department of Homeland Security, the schools are still part of the government, right? Teachers are government employees. The post office is a governmental organization. And so all of those things necessary to keep the lights on and the wheels rolling and all of those things are still in place. Part of the issue is you've got a $6 trillion budget that's on the line, and $1 trillion is proposed to go towards defense spending. And so people in Congress that are against wartime spending is vehemently opposed to that. On the other side, you have the healthcare bills and bills, because the thing about the budget, I was looking, there's a $6 trillion budget being proposed and 400 different agencies that are jockeying to get their budget passed. And so when you have people in certain congressional districts that are looking for certain bills that impact their constituents, well, people don't care about that because it's not their constituency. And so now you take that dynamic, and then you increase the level of polarization that's happened by a factor of 10. Now you've got a real potential for bad things to happen as it relates to the government opening, because both sides are very much entrenched in their perspectives. On the right, they're saying, hey, the left, you guys want this healthcare, Obamacare crap. We don't want that. And you want all of these entitlement programs. And on the left is saying, hey, you want war and you want to put all this money there. And you want to, continue running recklessly with this budget and increasing the deficit because we're already north of 100, trillions and trillions of dollars as a deficit. We're almost at $40 trillion. And so when you look at all of those dynamics and both sides of the party can say we're going to hold the other side hostage because without the Democratic votes, the budget doesn't pass. And without Republican votes, the budget doesn't pass. And when you have Democrats and Republicans that are opposed to each other and they're saying, we can stop you from doing what you want. And the other side can say, we can stop you from doing what you want. Who knows how long this is going to last? So here's my question to you. The record is 35 days. Do you think this shutdown is going to be longer or shorter?
I don't think it's going to break a record.
You don't think so? Okay.
No, I don't think it's going to break a record.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be a record, break a record. And the only reason why I don't think it's going to break a record is because, and this might be a double-edged sword though, now that I think about this longer,
all right,
is that Trump is about getting stuff off the plate as fast as he can. And he does not want this hanging around because whether it's good or bad, it's fine. But he doesn't want something like this to hang around for too long because it hurts his narrative of the deal maker, right? And I can get stuff done, right? The fact that Israel and all this stuff is not.
This is out of his hands, though, man.
I know it, but he's still. Come on, this is a guy that
he's an
I control
influencer.
everything.
No doubt,
he's an influencer. So I don't think it's going to break a record. And I understand the jockeying and the positioning for everybody that needs and the essential services and all these things, all these different things. But we still spend over 60% on social services. So we still spend a lot on that and defense. So those are the two biggest things I think are social services and defense.
Sure.
And I think defense is a priority simply because we live in a very weird, scary world, and we should be on that because everything you turn around, it's always like America is under attack and threat. And generally we probably are because, again, I say it a lot and I'll say it continuously. Everyone is envious of the way we live and everyone wants what we want, what we have. I mean, it's just a matter of fact. But I get it. I understand it. I just wish that there was a way to get around the human aspect of getting what everyone wants, and that's really what it is. Everyone wants to get what they want for their prospective lobbies and their prospective interests, and that's again where term limits. I would love to social experiment that. I wonder if we could run an AI model. There's just no way to do it because we wouldn't be able to tell the candidates, right? Where we could look at the experiment and put term limits going back the last 40 years and injected term limits 40 years ago and to see how it would have evolved. Just because I think it would be. I just think the political atmosphere would be so dramatically different if we had term limits.
I got an idea for you as it relates to the budget being closed down. What if whenever not the budget, but the government closes down, their salaries get furloughed for the length of time that the government is closed down? Don't you think they'd get stuff done a lot faster?
Yes, everybody's money motivated. Look,
that's right.
These guys make what, $200,000, $250,000 a year.
In many cases,
they get all their benefits paid for. They don't have to deal with the same benefits that we have to deal with.
That's right.
So literally, they have no incentive. Like it's the biggest cushy fat cat job of the world.
Yeah,
I bet you.
And there's a chance where I think there was something. Sorry to cut you off, but 800,000 federal workers have an opportunity to be furloughed, depending upon how long this closure happens. So right now there haven't been any furloughs, but there's a possibility that could happen. And so the White House is trying to get Congress to move, but they're lockstep.
Yeah.
So go ahead with your point.
I just think that it just creates. Look, I mean, if you're in the free market world, you have to constantly evolve, and you got to do a better job and get better and innovate. Like if Apple didn't innovate the iPhone, and I mean, Apple hasn't been doing a lot of innovation lately, but just for the sake of argument, look, if Apple didn't innovate, or if Microsoft didn't innovate, it wouldn't be in business today. It just wouldn't. I mean, look, Microsoft is completely 100% a different company than it was 30, 40 years ago, 20 years ago. Microsoft is vastly different. Amazon is the largest web hosting company. Amazon Web Services. Like, Amazon doesn't just ship products, right? So you think about how they have evolved and how these companies have changed. They have. In the private sector, you either evolve or you die. In politics, you just have to just continue to be like
survive.
Man, it's just if you took out term limits, or I mean, if you put term limits in, I just can't imagine. And again, there's a reason why that's it's not because both sides don't want term limits.
That's right. That's exactly
it's just
right.
It's just a big game. It's just a big game. But yeah, I would love to run that type of scenario to see how term limits would affect the outcome of decisions, because you wouldn't have this type of infighting. I don't think, anyways, you wouldn't, because the people that were in power 20 years ago aren't in power anymore. You know, but again, it's human nature, so people would figure out a different way. But still, I think it would make it more difficult and to make it more productive because the same people aren't there. So I think it's a great thing.
Yeah,
and I
that's
think
what
that
makes
their
it hard, because they're lawmakers.
Go ahead.
I think there's a lag between us. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying.
No, I was just going to say that.
Go ahead, Len.
No,
it's so quiet.
Okay.
Moments.
All right. So what I know
there
right?
is a lag.
So what I was going to say, they don't have the built-in incentive in the current system, because they're not going to create a law that's going against them. So the only way to create some type of term limit would be for some type of body outside of the legislature to propose that. And they certainly would not vote for that. And so, unless somebody had the guts who was on their way out to propose it into law and then have the people vote on it, I think overwhelmingly the public would vote for them to have term limits. And I just don't see a pathway towards that. But I agree with you, Chris. There should be some term limits, man. And, when you look at, like, I love the fact that the presidency has term limits. And so therefore, typically, so does the cabinet. And, you had Hegseth that was at Quantico last week, and they had all of these generals fly from all around the world, different battle zones throughout the United States, to come and convene. It was 800 of them to have this speech to them. And so I want to get your take on what you thought about what Pete Hegseth and what Donald Trump said to them, and just the overall tone. So imagine you're a general and you're inside of there listening to this. How would you have responded? And what would be your takeaway from the conversation?
I would have loved it.
Okay.
And here's the thing. I'm a Hegseth fan. I love it. When I see him and JD, I get excited because they're young. Like, I get them, I go, oh, they're not old and rotting corpses. Like, they're like even Trump's looking a little old, man. I see some pictures of Trump and they go, that mofo look old in the morning. You know that? You looking old in the morning. You know what I'm talking about. There's sometimes you get up in the morning and go, damn, I look old right now, dude. I gotta go for a walk.
Crow's feet, yeah.
Right?
Getting there.
You're just like, I look old this morning, right? But they're young. And that just kind of illustrates my point. Like, even AOC was fresh at one point. She was fresh, she was hip, she was vibrant. But now she's been in there, she got an office, she's going to stay there because she is going to operate under the same things that everyone else does, right? That doesn't have term limits. And and look at her now, she's becoming this stale, rotting food, like the food you put in the rotting drawer in your fridge, where it's like, I'm going to eat that. And then you put it in the drawer, and then like 2 weeks later, everyone has that rotting drawer in their fridge, right? But I would have loved that meeting, because this meeting is exactly the meeting that needs to happen in Congress. It was a clean house meeting. My initial thoughts was, oh my gosh, this is kind of crazy. Like, what's going on, right? But then it was like, because that's what it was, right? It was a clean house meeting. Like, they're getting rid of the DEI stuff. They're getting, I think it was one point, it's like, if you're overweight, get out of the military. Like, it was a cleaning house meeting, and I think it was needed, because I don't think that type of meeting in the military has been done in a long time from that level. And I think the military, there's no place in the military for political correctness. That's what we used to call it, right? Now we call it whatever we call it today, right? The fringe stuff that we call it today. We don't even call it being PC anymore now, right? What do we call it now? Inclusive? We call it being inclusive or whatever it is now. The buzzword, we're going to think of a new buzzword. And every industry has them, right? Like the medical industry has buzzwords too. Everybody today, it used to be everybody has anxiety. Today now everybody is confused or whatever it is, right? Or has brain fog. And in respect to all those people that have it. But I think it was a very good meeting. There's no place in the military for any of that. I just call it what it is for sissiness or whatever you want to call it. We need that lieutenant or that drill instructor. I think he's passed away now, that actor. If you know what I'm talking about, Full Metal Jacket. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Private Pat. That's the United States military. That's how the military needs to be. Like, you can't look at it like, I'm sorry, the military needs to be lean, mean, cut, high and tight, and lean and mean. And there's no PC, because I can guarantee you that when you get on the battlefield, no one's going to care about DEI. And no one's going to care about that. No one's going to care about it. They're just not. And I've worked with a lot of service members that have done multiple tours, and they have told me one of the biggest frustrations. There's a lot of frustrations. I won't say it. But I think that it's a great meeting. I think our military needs to toughen up. There's no room in the military for the kind of stuff that's been happening in the military. I don't want to get political and get into that, but you know what I'm talking about. But I think it's great, and I think it's at a time that's very well needed, Len. Our military needs to be the tip of the spear, as it always has been. It's exactly the reason why America was brought into 2 world wars and cleaned house in 2 world wars. There's a reason why, and if it happened again, granted, God forbid, there's a reason why, and even if it did happen, it wouldn't even be because of the United States. It would be because history has always shown, and I could put my foot in my mouth, but at any rate, I don't think the United States is going to go out there and cause a war. But if we had to go out there and clean up another war like we have, I guarantee you that we would clean house like we always have, just because of our budget and what we've done. And even though there's only been maybe about 5, maybe 10, I don't know the exact number of years of weirdness, and you know what I'm talking about, weirdness put into the military, it's not enough to unpen the 200-year culture of badassness that is the United States. Because we are. That's what we are. We are. This was the frontier, baby. The United States military was built on the backs of the frontier, of people, of the United States Army going across the frontier of America and going out there and doing what it did. And the grit and the grind of what America stood for and the culture of what America is, which is the cowboy. Don't mess with the cowboy. Don't mess. That's why Texas is so beautiful, and the most widely known state. Like, outside of the United States of America, the world knows Texas. Because that's the America is Texas. I hate to say it to everybody out there, but Texas is America, and everybody wants to deny it, but it is. Look, California used to be America, Len, but California is not America anymore.
Hey,
it's not. California is.
I'm not here to advocate for California, but Texas is not the spot, brother. Let me tell you, I like Texas.
Texas will be the most populated state. Within the next 10 years, it's going to be the most populated state.
Never. It won't. That won't.
Look at the math. Look at the data. What is it? I think 2030, 2035.
The trend.
Hold on. Let's ask chat. Let's ask chat.
The trend is moving back where people, because you're right. When COVID happened, for the first time in its history, more people moved out of California than moved in. But that trend reversed as of last year, if I'm not mistaken. But to go back to the conversation that happened, the military summit at Quantico, I think what the problem that I have is when we look at the media, depending upon what side of the aisle that media outlet is for. They only highlight one side of the issue. And one of the things that I hope that you and I bring to the table is that we highlight the good and the bad of every issue, because nothing is typically ever black and white, except for things like hurting children and death and killing people in cold blood and different things like that. But most of the issues we talk about, there's typically two sides. And so I think that it's important to look at that. And so when I listened to Hexa, because I didn't just listen to what other people said about what they said. I actually watched the whole thing between what Hegseth said and what Trump said. And I watched it from the beginning to the end. And when Hegseth came out, he's a very good looking, well-spoken guy. And, he served in the military, and I respect that. And I like the fact that he talked about standards, and I like the fact that he talked about making sure.
Who's better looking, Hexa or Newsom?
Bro, I can't talk about that. I don't know. They're both good looking dudes. They're both good looking. So, Gavin is a little older and he's got that suave look. They're both good looking guys. So anyway, as we digress, I would say listening to Hegseth talk to the people, he talked about standards, and I think that's important. What I did not like, though, is there were veiled threats about if they didn't do what he said, that there could be consequences. And I don't like that tone, because you brought them there. They're many of them, lost limbs. They lost partners. Many of them were injured themselves, and they've seen horrific things that have happened. And to belittle their experiences, even in the smallest way, you're talking about decorated generals. That's not the right tone to have. I think you could say, hey, listen, we've got to improve the level of fitness that we have overall. We've got to make sure that we're the strongest, the leanest, and the meanest. You could say all of that, but the threats that he threw out, I didn't like that tone. But I didn't really have too much of an issue overall with what he said. I'm not thrilled about the whole idea of it becoming the Department of War and just, snapping your fingers and rebranding that. I think there should be more of a process to it than just, having a speech, because to me, when you look at the military might of the United States is the strongest that the world has ever seen. And I think there should just be, when you're talking about issues with the military, there should just be a higher degree of decorum and respect as it relates to making those types of changes. And so I was more disturbed about what Trump said. Now, I like how he came in and he was very, endearing to the generals and all of that in the beginning. But when he went off script, that's where things go wrong with him. And the biggest issue that I have with what he said that I didn't like was how this idea of using the military to police its own citizens. The United States military was never meant to do that. You have the police, and you have detectives, and you have the FBI who are supposed to do that. Now, if there's something where there's a national emergency, where civil war breaks out and arms are turned on each other in an organized fashion to overturn the government, yes. So when they talk about enemies, foreign and domestic, you're talking about domestic enemies that are seeking to destroy the republic. A protest in Portland is not that. Some issues going on in Chicago and Los Angeles over ICE raids is not that. People have the right to protest. You can agree with their reasoning and their rationale for protesting, but the right to protest is part of an essential fabric of who we are as Americans. So to talk about this idea and this notion of turning the military against its own citizens is repugnant to me. And the other aspect that I didn't like was the whole partisanship talk, because in that room, if statistically speaking, half of them are Democrats and half of them are Republicans. And so the military is not supposed to be a partisan conversation. You're not talking to generals like you're talking to the United States citizenship. That speech in a rally, and for the DNC, perfectly fine in terms of the tone and the tenor, not the military turning on its own. But you talk about the radical left, go ahead and do that. Talk about how the previous presidents didn't do what they were supposed to do. You can talk about that in that context, but in front of a group of generals, no, sir. Wrong place, wrong time. Read the room. And so I think that he missed an opportunity to really establish himself as the commander in chief, because here's the thing about military is that when they get an order, as long as it's in alignment with the Constitution and it's not in violation of any law, their job is to take the directive of the commander in chief. And so you can't abuse that power because you have a partisan agenda. That becomes very, very dangerous.
So I don't like the Department of War thing. I think that's kind of like, I am a intention kind of person. So when I see or hear that, it kind of to me like gives that intention. So I'm not down with that. But I understand it is what it is. Maybe it signals, maybe it's a virtue or some type of virtue signal that, hey, the U.S. is ready, right? We're primed. I don't know why that language has to change. I'm sure maybe they have a good reason for it, but whatever the reason for it is, it is much more proactive, right? It is much more provocative to use that kind of, I'm no longer Secretary of Defense, I'm Secretary of War, right? But was the language changed at one point from war to defense?
Yeah, I think it was 1946 or 1947. Prior to that,
it was Department of War
before, yes.
Yeah, it was Department of War. So they switched it back. So that kind of makes me like, wait a minute, what's going on here, right? Department of War again, right? Either way, and you would know that too if you watch like war movies, old war movies of World War I or World War II. They say Department of War, right? So I'm okay with that. I think too, though, is with the aspect of if the shoe fits, I think then wear it. I think that if I was in the room and like you're saying, like the way they were talking and the tone and all that stuff, and maybe it would came off disrespectful. I wouldn't have taken it that way. Like if, for example, if I was in that room and I was a 3-star general, 4-star general. And I'm bam, 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 and I'm tip top like I should be as a general. And they were saying those things, I'd come out of the room going, damn straight, it's about freaking time to get some stuff around here.
You're talking about the standards, increasing standards. I'm with you on that. I hear you on that part.
Yes,
for sure.
But even the language of hey guys, even that,
I'm with that too.
I'd be okay with it.
I never had any issues with the talking about high standards, because as a person in the military, having high standards is of supreme importance. You're talking about life and death. I have no issue with that. My main issue was the partisanship issue. Like even with upholding male standards and making sure that everybody passes that, I could understand from a female's point of view why there could be a reason for differentiated standards. Okay, that's not a battle in which I'm willing to, die on the sword for. I could see both sides of it. I don't have any strong opinions about differentiating standards towards for women that are, reasonable, as long as it doesn't hurt. Like if you can pick up whatever machinery and you can shoot it and you can aim it and you can do what you do at a high level, I don't have any issue with there being differentiated standards within reason. If those standards get to a level where it drops beyond being effective in the field, because right now there are over 200,000 females in the armed forces. And on the one hand, they talked about the strength and the might of the of the American military, well, it's still strong and it's still mighty and it's still the number one in the world right now, even though the standards do in many cases need to be raised. But at the same time, you can't say on the one hand, let's wipe out these differentiated standards for females and then tout how great the military is at the same time. That's to suggest that we fall into number two. I could see that speech if all of a sudden, because like I do understand what Trump said, where he said, ever since World War II, we've lost different wars and stuff like that. I think wars are fought in a different way now. And so this idea of, to me, I don't think as many people are going to be sent to the field of battle. I think what Ukraine unleashed and unlocked was this whole idea of sending drones everywhere in droves, because they can inflict major damage on the opposition side without your side incurring many casualties. And so I think with AI technology, I think that's the direction. So if that's the case, I could be wrong, but if that's the case, then you've got to really reevaluate all of the rules and policies, because wars aren't fought physically anymore. Like if we were back in the days where you had a mace and a sword and you're fighting hand to hand combat, then yeah, of course. So it's important to understand, because all businesses iterate. So if businesses iterate, why are we talking about going back to standards from the 1940s and 50s and 60s? That's a problem. There's a disconnect.
I don't necessarily think it has to do with going back to standards from those years, but going back to the rigidity of standard. Because I don't think and standards should be standards. Standards should not change because the gender changes. It should be one standard, and this is it. Okay,
so let me say criteria is probably a better word, because I think there needs to be different criteria, but with high standards.
Of course.
That's what I meant.
And then as far as and the rest of it is concerned. Military readiness needs to be at a high point. It needs to be at a high point. And I don't think that the tone, now if let me put it this way, if subsequent meetings are like that, I don't think that's the tone of all meetings. I think that was the tone of that meeting, meaning the harshness, the crazy, like it was no holds barred, right? And a lot of people might have go, wow, that was crazy, right? Like you're saying, read the room. I think a meeting like that needed to be done, because I don't think there's been a meeting like that in a long time.
No, that's unprecedented. It's never happened, where they brought all the generals and all of the branches of the military together. It's never happened. One, it's a security risk, but and it was millions of dollars to do that. But I don't want to cut you off, but I just wanted to throw.
Funny you mentioned that, though, that you said a security risk. I'm wondering if it was almost an intelligence move to see who is compromised.
Interesting.
I mean, there's so many different ways to look at it from that perspective of going, and Trump being an a-hole at that meeting, everyone's expecting that. So is that a move? Is that a play? I think him having to set that tone and know that tone, because everybody knows Trump's tone is going to be that already. So he's going to deliver that tone. I think that meeting hasn't been done in a very long time. And I think that there was a lot to that meeting just, hey, we're going to do it one more. We're going to do this to set the tone. I think it was a meeting to see who's in, who's out, who's tired, who's sharp, who's in our camp, who do we have to watch, who could potentially be, who is watching us, who's tracking these guys as they move around, because they're in all their different countries, right? So I think there was a lot. I think that was a big operation that happened in that meeting. And I really think it was a meeting to see who's who in the zoo and who's in the camp and who's not. And now I think as a result, over the next couple of months, year, whatever, you're going to see a cleaning of house. And we won't ever know, by the way.
That's true.
That's
true. And some things we shouldn't know. You know what I mean? So we don't need to know.
No, we don't have to know everything. We don't have to know everything. Mm-hmm. We don't have to know everything. But at the same time, you want to go to bed at night and go, does the government have my best interest in mind? And it does.
Sometimes I wonder. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and it's like, that's where you go back to the Reagan days and go, damn, we need a hero. Like, we need a hero, man. Like, we need a hero. And I can't wait for Trump's presidency to end in success and you to wear a Trump shirt that says,
I don't think that's going to happen, man. I don't think
that says Trump's presidency was a success.
All right. So, yeah, I'm processing the idea that, because a part of me is like, yeah, take that bet, because there's no chance.
I would say I'd wear your candidate.
I don't have one.
But you don't even have one.
You're right.
You can't even pick one. You can't. Hey, I can pick my number 2. I can pick JD Vance because I'll pick him as well.
Oh, no, bro. Oh, my gosh. I hope he doesn't turn out.
Hey, you know what?
Okay, let me say this. I hope he gets better in the next 3 years if he's going to be the presumptive nominee. Because right now,
he's
bro.
Ahead.
Yeah, he just.
Him and Newsom are ahead of even. Him and Newsom are even ahead of in chances for 2020 are ahead of DeSantis.
Wow, that's going to be interesting to see how it all. Yeah, DeSantis has no shot. He messed up.
Why doesn't he have a shot? Because he's too libertarian?
No, he's not. Okay, so one thing that you can say, if you look at every president, whether
you gotta like DeSantis, he's
or
cool,
disagree with
he's
them,
calm and collected.
No, bro. This is the thing that's missing with him. He lacks the charisma. He, like the young folks say, he doesn't have that riz.
Yeah.
Like, he's super intelligent. He's principled in his stance. There's a lot of things that he says that I wholeheartedly, vehemently disagree with. I think he is a grounded, intelligent politician who he does right based on what he believes. Regardless if I agree with all of his beliefs, I think he's fundamentally a person who is looking to do right based on his beliefs. I believe that Vance, as of right now, and maybe it's because Trump is in office, I think he's at a place where he feels like he has to kiss the ring and take on that persona of Trump. And it just doesn't match him, bro. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so I just think that the next president that gets elected to office needs to be a person that's willing just to tone it down, man, and steam the division and just, temper the environment. But I know that the next person that gets in office, they're just going to be Trump 2.0 because they feel that's the formula to have to get in. And I don't think so. I really don't think so. That. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think so. I don't think his successor is going to do that. I think his successor is going to do the exact opposite. I think a successor of Trump is going to give you exactly what you're asking for, which is a toned down, good fiscal conservative policy, level-headed, and put JD Vance's or Newsom's riz or charisma into DeSantis, and you got a winning politician. He would win if he had their charisma, for sure. I think he'd win
for sure because that's the thing. Newsom has charisma, but he's a horrible legislator and a horrible manager. horrible. Don't even dare even say he's good in any way.
You didn't hear me fight back. I think the Democratic Party is in a world of trouble because they don't have a clear nominee. They don't have anybody with a clear pathway towards that. And that's just bad strategy. That's just bad management. And so, yeah, they've got a real tough road to slay, man. So, well, Chris, we've talked about a lot today. We've talked about the government shutdown to breast cancer awareness. So we covered a full gamut of topics, man. And so, as always, it's always good to have a conversation with you. And I hope those of you out there got some value from our conversation. And as I always say, each week we're going to get better and better. And please send in your comments. And then also make sure you like and subscribe to our channel so we can get out the word to more people who are evenly minded, who's not polarized on one side or the other, because we believe that our conversation is a reflection of what America really represents. We can disagree with each other, but at the end of the day, we still respect each other, and we move forward and do business with each other, and also share many of the same values. So regardless if you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, or nonpartisan, however you classify yourself, we have a place for you to listen to the topics we talk about. So with that being said, we appreciate you. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.